Good evening. This is Professor Rush once again, and this evening I want to discuss the psychology of gullibility. But before I do that, I need to present some definitions so that we're all on the same page. A stupid person is someone lacking in intelligence and unable to engage in abstract thinking. I don't really meet too many stupid people. These are not the type of people who watch educational TV or have the capacity to read books. Stupid people are really a minority. Ignorant people, on the other hand, lack knowledge and or are unwilling to seek knowledge or engage critical thinking. We're all ignorant in that we simply can't experience, read, or know everything. However, it's important to inform yourself about those issues that condition your reality of the world or that affect your life, like political issues and the politicians who get very rich through bribes and extortion, and certainly ancient alien hunters attempting to sell an absurd story with no basis in fact. Gullible people are easily tricked because they're too trusting. Gullible people can be young or old, although young people tend to be more gullible simply because they lack information and have a tendency to trust those in authority, a real big mistake. Naive people are similar to gullible people in that they lack knowledge. As with gullible, young people tend to be more naive, although this is not always true. Remember that wisdom does not always come with age, as there are many older people who fall for the ancient alien storyline as well. Unwary people are not alert to danger or deception. The unwary are most likely to get into trouble because they are naive and gullible. Political activists and ancient alien hunters find the unwary to be a great population to exploit. Then there are the timid, who do not know how to defend themselves emotionally or physically. They often have poor self-images and are easily intimidated by bullies or those perceived in authority. I have to note that Obama is out and about condemning bullying, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong. But Obama, in my opinion, is one of the biggest bullies on the planet, and he has encouraged bullying among others like Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. Rush Limbaugh, by the way, is, in my opinion, likewise a bully. Bullies, by the way, always surround themselves with people less intelligent than themselves because they're more easily controlled. There are other definitions I'll get into in other presentations, but let me discuss some of the dynamics of gullibility. It is important, first of all, for us to understand a little bit about human nature and group dynamics. Humans are a small group animal, that is to say, unlike deer or sheep, we're programmed to live in small groups of, say, from 30 to 60 individuals. We lived like this for hundreds of thousands of years. All individuals in the group are in a face-to-face contact. All members know each other. Expectations are based on experience from watching the behaviors of other group members. Remember, it isn't what you tell people you are what you do. In such groups, most of today's politicians would not be able to lie and cheat, and would be perceived as ordinary with no special talent. In these small groups, it's difficult to lie or pretend to be something you are not because your activities are out in front for all to see. Division of labor in these small groups was set up around sex and age. Men are better at doing certain things than women. For example, the male body is built for combat, and his job was to protect the group and to protect his immortality, that is, the children, which can only be bestowed by women, and certainly men can't give birth or nurse babies. In terms of age, a 2-year-old can't do what a 16-year-old can do, nor would they be expected to. However, when individuals were at an age to contribute, rather than take from the group, they would be expected to contribute, or they would simply be banished. Lazy people would not be tolerated. There was no welfare system in those groups unless a person was sick or injured. Taking care of the needy would ensure that someone would take care of you in time of your need. In these small groups, there were perhaps quasi-leaders or those who were best at doing certain things. For example, the leader of the hunt, or the ability to locate and utilize herbs and healing techniques. These quasi-leaders would be those individuals who best knew the way of the animals, the best trackers, for example, or perhaps the person who constructed the rabbit net, and so on. Or this might be the shaman or healer, who perhaps had a near-death experience went to the other side, and when he or she returned was a good candidate to be a frequent flyer, so to speak. Certainly bullies emerged in these early groups, but bullies never lasted very long because, just as today, they create morale problems and compromise group survival. Hitler, Stalin, Mubarak, Ayatollahs, Gaddafi, there's a long, long list. These are bullies. None of these individuals would have lasted long in our small groups in a time past. You might ask yourself, why do they get away with their bully behavior today? Well, they recruit stupid people who are willing to kill and torture just to be liked by the bully. In these early groups, grandparenting didn't exist. That is to say, life expectancy was short, and what is called the nuclear family, or parents and children, was the rule. We don't see the idea of elders or grandparents until fairly recent times, say around 35 to 30,000 years ago, when life expectancy with modern humans increased, leading to the three-generational unit. We see this in Europe 35,000 to 30,000 years ago as infant mortality rates decrease, food resources were more than adequate, and technology for modifying the environment becomes more advanced. In such systems, the elders or grandparents provided life-saving information for the group. We are all familiar with the Native American Indians and the establishment of tribes and a chief. This trusted individual would help settle disputes and offer guidance to the younger members of the group. Thus, we see this idea of trusting in authority, but that trust only extended to members of one's own group, not to all old people in other groups who would be strangers. The behavior of elders would be known, and for an elder to act in his or her self-interest could put the group in jeopardy. Children in today's world grow up in these same small family units with perhaps neighbors or close friends or workmates who become extensions of our, what I'll call, small tribelets. We add to this teachers and others, doctors for example, who give the impression of being connected to our tribe. But they belong to other tribes and are more likely to act in the interests of their respective group members. Parents promote this idea of trusting others. Like small children, we tend to trust that these others will do the right thing for the members of our tribe. Our parents, when we're at a tender age, turn us over to strangers in the form of teachers, and they tell us everything will be all right. And in most cases, they're right. We see teachers as surrogate parents, and we trust that they won't hurt us. And like our parents, they become authority figures who we're supposed to respect and follow their directions. Now, this conditioning runs deep and is connected to that early programming, again, that extends deep into prehistory, many thousands and thousands of years. We expect people in authority to include us in their tribe, to help us and to look out for our welfare. For example, teachers, police officers, politicians, and so on. Beyond the family group, society in various ways legitimizes certain individuals like priests and ministers, those with higher education, for example, PhDs and MDs. And this ritual legitimization leads to the impression that these individuals are all-knowing and will only act for the benefit of all. The doctor before someone's name somehow confers authority to profess knowledge and understanding of certain blocks of knowledge, which most people accept without question. This, of course, is a big mistake. In the political arena, we elect people because of what they tell us during campaigns, assuming that they won't lie to us and will work in our best interest. We all know that we have to be very cautious there. However, people still get taken in. This is where gullibility comes in. This is where naivete comes in, and this is where the unwary get done in. We live in an age, what is referred to as the age of missing information, wherein in order to survive, we rely on specialists. And we assume these specialists will give us that missing information. Here is the point. Outside of mathematics and hard sciences, for example, anatomy, biology, genetics, all the rest is philosophy. For example, I teach osteology, and a femur is a femur across the board. It's agreed upon. And the morphological traits on the bone, these are all agreed upon from university to university. There's no ambiguity here with this. There's absolutely no disagreement about this from one university to the next. There is no philosophy here. However, when we're talking about the locking out knee joint and why people walk upright and so on, well, now we're into speculation and philosophy. All the other disciplines, that is psychology, sociology, history, and even aspects of medicine, and what is called political science, which is a misnomer, by the way, these are all philosophies with various opinions, with little agreement as to, for example, why people do things or what to do in an economic crisis. We can document what people do, but why they do it, well, that's opinion. So we get taken in by authority figures, by people who profess to understand economics and proper political process. We get taken in by so-called scientists who philosophize about the existence of ancient aliens with little proof to back up their claims. Another aspect of gullibility closely connected to our small group nature is peer pressure, or accepting ideas or beliefs in order to feel accepted in one's group. Peer pressure is very powerful and is accomplished through fear of rejection. Being an accepted member in almost any group requires that you buy into attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors of other group members. Even though you may have doubts, those doubts are overcome by the need for acceptance. Acceptance in the group translates into life, while rejection equals death. I have outlined the power of rejection in previous publications, but most recently in Failed God, Fractured Myth in a Fragile World. Fear of celestial rejection, as an example, is used by priests, ministers, and imams to keep the member in the group, usually for economic reasons, but to stop what they would consider unwanted behavior. In my mind, celestial rejection is an extreme form of emotional abuse. In Islam, apostates, those who would like to leave this fascist organization, are threatened with death. Now, lest some of you misunderstand this, I am referring to the tradition of Islam and not to individual Muslims, who can be true believers in the extreme and who would gladly shoot me in the head, and on the other hand, Muslims who are Muslims in name only. Now, there is another rather nasty side to peer pressure, and that is name-calling. During the last presidential election, I was told by a couple of colleagues that if I didn't vote for Obama, I was a racist. I didn't respond to this, realizing that when you argue with a fool, you become one yourself. Those who make such accusations are engaging in what one would call projection, or the placement onto others their perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors. I was also told by other faculty members that if I didn't believe in global warming, I didn't care about protecting the environment. This type of name-calling and attempts to belittle are clear indications that the accusers have little faith in their own beliefs and feel extremely uncomfortable when others take contrary positions. As you can see then, our small group nature, peer pressure, fear of rejection, and name-calling in many cases promote ignorance and gullibility, snaring the unwary. Another nasty side of peer pressure is exhibited during mob rule, where, for example, union representatives in Minnesota play on peer pressure to get decent people to do things they ordinarily wouldn't do, like, for example, when that 8th grade teacher, ordinarily a nice, decent person, we're informed, interfered with another person's right to free speech by screaming into that individual's microphone. These are typical tactics, along with violence used by union bosses and other ignorant people who don't have a reasonable or logical argument to uphold their position. Moreover, their goal is to turn you from citizens with the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness to subjects, their subjects, with no rights or liberties, and certainly no freedom of speech.